Welcome to Module 6, Calibration of SLO Review, Part 3 of 4. Calibration Exercise 2 is an activity to ensure that those assigned to review the same or similar SLOs are providing a similar standard of review. A main purpose is to reach consensus among review committee members on approving or not approving each of an SLO's components, so that feedback to each teacher can be aggregated. The intended audience is groups of reviewers at the school or district level who are reviewing the same or similar SLOs. Calibration Exercise 2 should be completed after Calibration Exercise 1 and after independent review of assigned SLOs has taken place. To complete the activity, access Handout 6.9 as well as the materials referenced on Handout 6.8, which can be found online adjacent to this video. As mentioned, the list of materials necessary for Calibration Exercise 2 is listed within Handout 6.8, and the exercise itself is outlined in Handout 6.9. When review committee members reconvene for the second calibration session to complete this exercise, the following materials should be available. The completed SLOs in their templates, reviewed during the independent review period, as well as the assessment checklist for each SLO, and access to the assessments included in each SLO. Copies of each review committee member's SLO feedback forms for use in discussion, as well as a blank form on which to provide an aggregation of reviewer comments for the teacher. After the SLOs are reviewed, if it is determined that a teacher needs to complete revisions to an SLO, it is helpful to have clear feedback regarding what the educator can do to revise each unmet criterion. The SLO feedback form is a way to structure this feedback so that each teacher can quickly target the areas in need of improvement before the SLO can be approved. The expectation is that all review committee participants would, through discussion during the calibration session, aggregate their feedback for the teacher after determining which criteria are met and unmet in each component. Therefore, the teacher would receive one copy of the SLO feedback form for each SLO. Also, one copy of the SLO approval status and accompanying rationale form for each SLO, which is Handout 6.4. This form also will be provided to the teacher to summarize the status of the SLO approval and to indicate whether any components of the SLO are still in need of improvement. Finally, a copy of the SLO checklist, which is Handout 6.5, for each SLO. If review committee members determine that the SLO review does not require any revisions, the committee can check or mark not applicable for each criterion in each component and submit the checklist as a part of the SLO's record of approval. To begin the second calibration session and exercise 2, review committee members should first meet in groups with individuals who reviewed the same SLOs. Note that if the entire review committee is responsible for reviewing all SLOs, participants may complete each part as a whole group. The group should first discuss their independent review and completion of the SLO feedback forms for each SLO in each of the 7 components. Second, members of the group should discuss any differing interpretations of checklist criteria and attempt to come to a consensus regarding which criteria will be designated as met for each SLO. Third, the small group should consolidate feedback into one feedback form for each SLO. During this part of the process, keep in mind that if 2 teachers are instructing the same course and using the same standards, it is highly encouraged that the same assessment be used to determine student growth. If this is not the case, a strong defensible rationale for the differences should exist and be documented. Some districts may require identical assessments in this situation, so each teacher should follow the guidelines established by the teacher's district. The point of the second phase of Calibration Exercise 2 is for all reviewers to provide sufficient feedback to teachers in order to strengthen SLOs with unmet criteria. As a group, select what you perceive to be the strongest SLO or group of strongest SLOs, and the SLO most in need of improvement, or the group of SLOs most in need of improvement. Then, as a group, consider: how does your strongest SLO compare with the example SLO in the very first calibration activity? And this would be after suggested improvements are made to that example. If your strongest SLO had everything corrected as indicated during feedback, would it be an exemplar SLO? If not, determine what additional feedback might be necessary to ensure that the teacher or teacher team strengthens that SLO to the standard. Next, consider as a group: if your SLO with the most need for improvement had everything corrected as indicated in your feedback, would it be comparable in rigor to your strongest SLO? If not, assess what additional feedback you can provide to help the teacher move that SLO toward comparability. Repeat this process as necessary for additional SLOs most in need of improvement based on any changes of interpretation resulting from this exercise. After Calibration Exercise 2 is complete, move on to Calibration Exercise 3 to ensure comparability within and across content areas. Note that this activity may take place with a separate group of individuals. If time does not permit completion of Calibration Exercise 3, some districts may consider SLOs approved after Calibration Exercise 2 is complete, and use Calibration Exercise 3 as a district-wide audit of SLO quality. This concludes Part 3 of 4 in Module 6. To access the remaining part, which includes Calibration Exercise 3, please visit www.education.ohio.gov.